Unbroken, healing through storytelling.
Hello and welcome to Unbroken, Healing Through Storytelling, the podcast show with me, Madeleine Black, where I speak to people that I have met along my journey that have overcome adversity and, they haven't just bounced back in life, they've bounced forward. And today, my guest is Sheila Kamuda. Let me tell you a little bit about her before we have our chat. Her life changed on November the 11th, 2012, when Bob, her husband, passed away. She started her healing journey, which included writing a letter a day to Bob and nurturing Sydney, their daughter, who was 15 when he died. Sheila's healing took 6 years, and during this time, she thought about her empowerment journey and how she could help others. Drawing on her leadership experience, she explored coaching and started her business, Live Out Loud Coaching, in 2018. Sheila is committed to helping people recognize their power, especially in their careers. She is putting finishing touches on a guided journal entitled My Badass Journal, which contains 52 prompts and a Badass Manifesto to help people live an empowered life. In her free time, she can be found at the theatre, writing, doing open mic and travelling. So, welcome to the show, Sheila. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for getting up very early because it is only 7 o'clock in Seattle at the moment. So the very first question that I ask all of my guests, because we are called Unbroken, is what does that word unbroken mean to you?
Yeah, when I hear that word, what comes up for me is that we are all whole. And no matter what happens in our life, and terrible things happen in our life and difficult things happen in our life, but I believe we can find our way. And it takes time, and we need to be patient with ourselves. And we actually have to learn how to love ourselves, but we can get to the other side. So that's what it means to me. No matter what struggles we face, we can get to the other side.
Yeah, well, I ask this question every week and every guest brings a different reply. So I love that we need to be patient with ourselves and we need to learn to love ourselves in order to get to the other side of feeling broken. So that is a lovely answer. So as we mentioned in the bio, your husband died, Bob died a few years ago now in 2012, and he had cancer, didn't he?
Yes, he was ill. So in about 2011, discovered it. Sydney, our daughter was 14 at the time. And it was pretty sad. In February, I think they discovered it. And by September, he really started to go downhill because he had a seizure. It's quite horrible, actually. He had a seizure, and my daughter, I called her and I said, just call the police, because I was so nervous and he wasn't breathing. And I told her to not come near me, but just call where she was so she wouldn't see him. And so she called, and they instructed her how to tell me how to revive him. It was unbelievable. So it's something that the two of us went through together. I revived him. The ambulance came, was taken to the hospital. But after that, when he came to, so from September, and then he passed away in November of 2012, it was a short time. And I knew I made a promise to myself to, no matter what would happen, he would not leave home. He would be at home. I didn't care what. I did not want him to be afraid. I did not want him to feel he had to be in a hospital. That wasn't happening on my watch at all. And I learned, who do I call? How do I find caregivers, hospice, whatever it was a real learning experience for me, because I relied on him so much that I had to just get in there and do it. And so he was home. It was really amazing. In fact, I had invited some family over thinking we could have an early Thanksgiving here in the house, and I rented a table, and I was going to bring it into the bedroom and where he could sit and watch, and for an early Thanksgiving. And he passed away the day before we were going to have our Thanksgiving.
Oh,
And the
so
family, we all joined together anyway and celebrated him.
yeah. So for us in the UK, Thanksgiving is around the end of November, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. It just sounds like the last thing that you can do for someone is to care for him in the way you did at the end of his life. It's very mixed, isn't it? It's heartbreaking, but it's beautiful that you had that time with him as well when he needed you most.
Yeah, it's funny how you go through life and you go through different changes, and we sort of found a different quiet time together. It's just different, but very close. And because I just wanted him to know that I would not let him down.
Yeah. And what was he like, Bob, as a person?
Oh my gosh. He was a Renaissance man, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
He loved baseball and he loved opera. He loved the New York Times crossword puzzle, and that's what he did every single day. And he loved the Sunday New York Times. He loved playing electric guitar. He was artistic. He was smart, well-read, liberal. He loved and encouraged me to do the things I loved. He loved traveling. We traveled quite a bit together. We were so blessed to travel. There was a time in our life we were traveling quite a bit. And he was just an incredible, smart, funny, glib person. I adore him.
Yeah, he sounds a bit like a free spirit.
Yeah, he was a bit, I would say I was the more of the free spirit. He was very analytical. I was more impulsive.
Okay.
He was more like, how are we going to do it? And I would be like, let's just go. Let's go to Paris. Let's do it.
And
he would be like, how?
Yeah.
But he was a Renaissance man. He just liked all different kinds of things. You couldn't pigeonhole him in one place.
So an eclectic taste.
Very.
Yeah. And so after he passed away, you decided you didn't want to go to a grief group, and I don't know, where did this decision to write the letters to him one a day come from?
Yeah. Well, I was recalling back. I was actually, because you kind of forget over the years, I think a friend told me to go to somebody because that's what you do. And I went to somebody once and I'm like, okay, I'm not going back there. That was awful. All they're doing is bringing up bad memories. And I realized there was something inside of me that I didn't want to bring up bad memories or sad memories, although I was sad. I didn't know what it was. Something inside of me was saying, you need to celebrate him. And I missed him a lot. So I had journals in the house. I was always journaling. I like writing. And I started to write. I looked at my first book of journals and I actually started to write things he used to say, memories about him, what he liked to eat, what he liked to cook. Oh yeah, he was a good cook also. Where we like to go, what his favorite scotch was. I just started to write. And then I realized, wow, I'm wanting to remember these amazing things and celebrate him. It's like I wanted the world to know who he was and what he was like. And then I think it was actually December 9th was my first letter. I thought, wow, I'm just going to write to him. And I wrote how I missed him and how I was handling the banking. It was that sort of stuff. It was like I was talking to him. Okay. I could not have him here.
And what did it do writing that first letter as if he was still here?
It did bring up sadness, but it felt like I was still hanging on to him, which probably somebody would say was not healthy. But for me, it was really healthy. I needed to talk to him and to share my life with him and to share what Sydney was doing with him and it distracted me, actually. It was a distraction. I had a very hard time reading. I couldn't concentrate. But writing it was a different approach and it was a different activity. And I found I could distract myself writing. And I loved telling him what was going on. And then the letters became, remember when we went to Paris that time? Or remember when we went to London and we saw Wicked that time? And remember how they served ice cream during intermission? And I needed to talk about our life together. And I filled 37 journals. I did not miss one day writing to him.
That is a lot of journals. Do you have a total number of the number of letters that you wrote?
I should have looked that up. I don't. I could look it up. I have them all on my bookshelf.
But it's a lot. So this is over 6 years, and this is 37 notepads that you filled. Wow. And for those that are listening to this, Sheila's just holding up one of her books here, which is filled with words. So when you got to the end of the 37th journal, you had written now for 6 years to Bob. Why did you decide that that was the end?
It's funny because I didn't really decide. Excuse me. I just didn't have a need. There was nothing more I needed to say.
Okay.
I felt I was finally at peace. And during this time, I was also trying to heal, and I was listening to inspirational YouTube videos and things like that. And I was going on a more, I would say, spiritual path of feeling better. And something happened, and I was about to write, and I'm like, you know what? I don't need, you're here. I don't need to. I'm good. And the words weren't flowing.
So it came to an organic end, really.
Yes, it did. Yes.
Yeah. But how is it to write all these letters and never get a reply? Or did you sense him around you when you were writing these letters? Did it bring him closer to you?
I wanted it to bring him closer to me. What I've since learned is, and I do believe this, and it took me a long time to learn this, is that the sadder you are, the more distant your loved one is, because he's in a very happy place. And I almost wanted to show him that I was sad, or I wanted to show him that I was still grieving him. And I sensed our memories. I don't know that I sensed him. I think I just wanted to. I wanted to keep him near me. You know, I didn't touch his clothes for years.
You said that you left it really as a shrine, exactly how it was when he passed away.
Yeah. And it was about, again, at that 6-year mark when I finally started to be like, I don't really like that art on the wall. It was more his than mine. And I felt terrible removing it. It was a very strange thing to go through. It's like, oh, will he like that I'm removing that? And I'm like, Sheila, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. Yeah.
So did you imagine in those 6 years when you're writing these letters every day that you would get to this place where you would feel better one day?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I did not. I just wrote.
Yeah.
Every day I would remember coming home, because he took care of a lot of things. He retired. He was older than me. He retired from work when Sydney was 2. I loved going into the office. So I'd come home and dinner was made. You know, Sydney would be taken to her activity, whatever had to happen. He just took care of everything, you know, in the home. And I just, every day I would come home, and it was now different for me. There was nobody there, and I'd have to go to the grocery store, whatever it was. And every day I remember at like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at the end of the day, I would be like, okay, you know what, you did it. You got through another day. You're standing, you're breathing. But I did not know that I would get there. Every day it was, okay, I made it through one day. And then after a year, I made it through 1 year. And then I thought, okay, maybe the second year I'll feel better. And then I just stopped questioning that. I just kept writing.
But I think what you're really essentially saying is just take it day by day.
That's right. Day by day, little by little, moment by moment.
Yeah. And when you look back, then you can see, yeah, it's another day. I'm okay. Yeah. But I imagine you must have missed not just the physical person, but all the practical stuff that he did as well. You kind of had to learn now what to do for yourself.
Oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. I felt that I had lost my partner in life.
Mm-hmm.
I had lost my friend. And I actually also lost me, Sheila, because he did so much. I mean, it sounds like, didn't I do anything? But I did a lot. But he was just, it was a reverse situation. Our family life was a reverse situation. And Sydney was very close to him, and they just did everything together. He would play baseball and he would take her with him. And, you know, I was at work And it was really difficult for me to like, oh, I have to go grocery shopping, you know, had to, oh, how did I cook that chicken dish? Wait. And even today, I'm like, where is that damn recipe he used to make? I can't find some of his recipes. And it was really difficult for me. I also didn't drive a lot growing up in New York. We didn't even own a car when I was growing up. I learned how to drive late in life in Seattle. And I knew that when he became ill, I better get on the ball with this. And I did. And I still don't drive very much. I'm just not a driver. I can get to the store. I got him to his doctor's appointments. I was able to do that. And I had a very good friend base out here because there's no family out here, and my friends helped me quite a lot. But it was very difficult. I had to start all over again without this person that I really relied on. And he liked it. He liked his role also, you know.
And how was it for your daughter? Because she was 15. I'm a mum of 3 girls, and I know 15 can be a tough age anyway. You're kind of on the cusp of, you're a child and you're a young adult and you think you know it all, and challenging time anyway. So how was it for her?
Was the most horrendous thing I've ever witnessed.
Yeah.
He was her everything. I mean, he was everything, and then he was gone. And I didn't have his personality. You know, it's so interesting because, and yes, you could be brought up by a single parent, of course, and you have friends and extended family, but I wasn't him. And what she got out of him, that I couldn't give her, and it was very hard for her. I think that's probably also what helped me persevere, because everything, it was like everything I did to make sure she was healthy and whole. And it was a very, very hard time. She had a hard time in high school. She's sort of a free spirit kind of person. And I understand her free spirit, and it was very difficult. And I tried to help her. She was very involved in theater, and I tried to help her and encourage her. I always encouraged her. In fact, I always love this. I always remember this so well, because at 15, well, he passed away at 15, so that was November. Her birthday's in June, so she turned 16. And one of the biggest healing moments for her was when she was in a teen production of Rent. And she was able to cry, because that's such a sad show. She was able to cry and sing and dance and express. And whenever I think of that show, I think of her in the beginning of her perhaps healing.
So she didn't need any drops in her eyes to pretend to stage cry. They were real tears coming from a hurt place.
So difficult for her.
Yeah, so it's not just your grief journey, it's supporting your daughter on her grief journey. 2 very different relationships with the one person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's amazing. She's 23 now. And that was another thing I had to figure out, colleges, and I had to figure, oh my gosh, I had to do all these things that I would always ask him, like, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think of this? What do you think of that? But I also realized, kind of an interesting thing, that because I'm a very independent thinker, even though I relied on him for practical things, I'm very independent. And really, I kind of remembered my independent, sort of challenging nature. And I'm like, I can get her through college. Yes. I know how to do this,
Yes.
And it brought back the Sheila, the true whoever I really was without the person.
Yeah, it's like you were Sheila and Bob, that became your identity for a while, but actually you were always just Sheila. You were born Sheila and you will die Sheila, and you are you, really, aren't you?
Yeah, that's an incredible epiphany I learned, that even though I adored him and loved our life together, it's very interesting that I found my own self through this. And I liked what I saw. And I liked that, I liked what I saw. I liked that person.
So your sense of self is stronger now in Bob's passing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I always believe that even though you don't know what the gift is, there is a gift in everything. What a horrible thing to say, that somebody passed and there's a gift. But if he hadn't passed, I wouldn't have explored coaching. If he hadn't passed, I don't know if Sydney would have gone to the college she went to, which is actually in Chicago, his hometown.
Okay.
There are things that have happened that I wouldn't have gone on a sort of a spiritual journey. That wouldn't have happened. It would have just been business as usual.
Yeah. No, it is interesting to see the paths that we take because of an experience. And like you, would all of that have happened if that hadn't happened, and I don't think they would have.
No.
So did anyone read the letters when you were writing the letters, or you kept them very private?
Nobody read them. Sydney didn't. No, nobody read them.
And you have kept them still to this day, though? They sit on your bookcase?
Oh yeah, they're on my bookcase. Yeah.
I just think it would be a beautiful book. Maybe not 37 journals, but to pick out some of the letters, I just think, it's like a love story that carries on beyond the grave, really, isn't it?
Yeah. In fact, I was looking at the first one last night, and because I hadn't picked them up in a while, and I'm like, oh, this would make an interesting book. It is sort of love letters, and it's kind of interesting to think of it that way.
Well, I have had grief as well. I lost my father when I was younger, and I do believe that love never really dies. Yes, he's not with me in the physical body, but it's as if he's just in another room, really, is how I think of it.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes now, or often now, something will happen and I'll be like, oh, Bob, did you see that? And I don't have to worry. I don't worry out of it. I'm like, oh man, that was interesting. Did you just, did you just see that?
Yeah.
Did you just do that?
Yeah, well, my mum remarried, so she's been married to my stepfather for 20 odd years, and she'll still call Peter Leo, which was my dad's name, and she still, talks as if my dad's still around. So yeah, that's why I really believe that this love never dies. So you, as you mentioned earlier, you went on to discover coaching, and you have this business now called Live Out Loud. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The name actually I took the name from a quote by Emile Zola, I am here to live out loud. And I feel that, in fact, it happened one day when I was journaling or writing, and I felt so good. I just felt in my element or good. I also feel that way when I'm singing. I love singing. I'm creating something and I'm like, wow, I am living out loud. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I felt that when a person feels empowered and if a person is doing what they are meant to do and it comes naturally, they are living out loud. And I thought, this is what I want my coaching business to be called, Live Out Loud. Because it's
perfect,
where I want, I want everybody to get to that place. Because I know they can.
So what does it mean when you say you want people to be empowered? What do you mean by that? Because everybody has a different take on the word, really, don't they?
Oh, yeah, that's true. And I work with people, so I mainly work in sort of the career realm and not with executives and that type, but sort of the people who are just trying to get through their daily job. And there are people that feel that they're in a position at work, for instance, and they're not allowed to ask this question or take this stand or make this decision. And I try to explain to them, you have power. You have power. Let's figure out where you can take a stand or where you can request what you want. You have power. You're not some little tiny person off in a cubicle that is waiting for somebody to give you permission to do things. And so that's a lot of it, is people don't do things. They don't realize they can give themselves permission. They're not going to get in trouble for it. So some of it is through that. Some of it is through, if they want a career change and they're not sure what to do and they're not sure how to think about it, they just don't allow, it's like they don't allow themselves to think they're good enough. And so I try to help them see who they are. I have like sort of what I call 6 keys or 6 pillars. And the first one is, what do you bring to the party? And what it is you're not your resume. You're your history. You're your background. You're your experiences, your struggle. 10 people can have the same position as you and they're not going to do it like you, because so it's like, what do you bring? And I allow people to realize, oh yeah, I do bring that. I am good at that, because people don't like to, I don't know, they, you toot your own horn. They don't like to do that. And so that's, to me, empowerment.
Yeah, I often
realizing who you are.
Yeah, I often think if we could get out of the way of ourselves, we'd be so much better. That we hold ourselves back, really, don't we? We kind of sabotage ourselves.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's not that nobody's doing it on purpose, actually. It's what we're just used to doing.
Yeah.
We're used to holding teachers and doctors and bosses on a pedestal. So that just puts us down here. And I'm like, we're not down here. Like, that's not how that is. So they don't even realize that there is power, that they do have power, and they can give themselves permission. And I think it just starts, I do believe that it starts with self-love. If I was doing this a long time, I'm going to be like, oh, wow, that's so woo-woo. But really, if you don't love yourself, you can't feel the power. Yeah. You have to say, yeah, I'm going to go for it, because I am good enough. I'm enough. I can do this. And I always try to show people the evidence, because it's important to see evidence of the power. Were you successful before? What successes can you tell me about? List out successes, and we start talking, and they could be tiny. As these are all things I did for myself. So some of my successes have nothing to do with work. It's helping Sydney pick a college, success. Getting through every day, success. Reading a book, success. People always think it's the big success. I always say that the red Lamborghini doesn't have to land in your driveway to prove anything. Maybe the success is you hit the send button on a difficult email. And I try to show people that's their success.
Yes. Well, I think when you talk about self-love, it's almost about your self-worth, your self-confidence. All of these are all wrapped in there, aren't they?
They are, absolutely.
Yeah.
And once somebody gets a hold of it and they have sort of an aha moment, they're like, oh my God, it's like a window crack has been opened. It's like, oh, they just hadn't seen it.
Yeah, once we see it, we can't unsee it, really, can we? Once we see it, we see it.
Yeah, can't go back.
No, so I get a sense that this is almost like it is a job, but it's like your passion is really helping people.
Yes. And I think, when I first started in coaching, I remember that the leader said, well, what is it that you want to get out of it, or that kind of thing. And I remember, because at the time I was trying to get through things and live and help Sydney, I said, if I could help Sydney, I'm good. If that's it, then I'm good. And I think everything I do, even the posts I write and the blogs I write, they're to answer something that she's going through. It always goes back to Sydney, but it helps everybody.
Mm-hmm. So you still do your writing, just not to Bob now, because on your website you have a lot of blog posts that you put up,
Yes.
don't you?
Yeah,
so people could go to your website and read your blogs, and maybe they might answer some of their questions that they have as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I try to do them. I sort of have an irreverent way of speaking. I'm not academic. I don't like to be that way. My New Yorker sassiness comes out, which I enjoy. I enjoy that much more than being dry.
Oh, we need a bit of New York sassiness. I don't think we've ever got enough of that. So just before we kind of wrap up this interview, I guess, do you have any advice for someone that's listening that's maybe recently grieved, or they're supporting someone else in their grief? What would you say to them if they're listening?
Yeah, I would say that they may not believe it, but they can get through, and every day may be difficult, but they will make it through every day. Distraction is key. To find something that distracts you. That's key. It could be cooking, gardening, watching TV, sewing, walking. I don't care what it is. You must find a distraction to get you through the day. Every single day you must distract yourself, and that you can get to the other side, and you will find yourself through that. So there is a gift.
Well, I think that's a wonderful place to end, that there is a gift through it all, through all the pain, it can be turned into something better. So, Sheila, thank you so much for, again, getting up extra early to speak to me this morning from Seattle. I really appreciate it.
And I just want to say, if people wanted to find me, can I tell them they could find me on liveoutloudcoaching.com?
Absolutely. We're going to put all the details in the show notes anyway, so don't worry, we'll stick those all in the notes. So thanks again.
Thank you so very much. I really
Unbroken,
appreciate that.
healing through storytelling.